The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. It's Friday edition. That means we got the big dog on the program. Waiting for the bark. No bark today? Oh. There it is. The big dog. The big dog never lets you down when you need a bark. Aaron Bruski is the big dog. I'm Dan Besbris. We're going to be talking about all of the biggest stories of the week. And mind you, there have been quite a few massive pickups emerging off of the waiver wire. We're getting a look at teams with their new players from the trade deadline. And Brew, you are a tired man, so I'm going to try to get you in and out here in, I don't want to say record time because it's probably going to take the same amount of time as usual, but I'm going to try not to put you on any hot seats. I'm just going to let you cruise through this bad boy. That sounds okay, right?
No. Don't put the kid gloves on me, Dan.
I've got the kid gloves on. I'm wearing them.
Don't put the kid gloves on me.
I need them for myself.
Put me in the hot seat.
There's no real hot seat on this one, I don't think. This is a wonderful time to be doing fantasy stuff. There's just so many things going on. And so because of that, I figured we'll just start with the weirdest bleep show in the NBA, and that is the great land of New Orleans. The land of Anthony Davis, the land of what the hell is going on.
Wait. It's Valentine's Day. You're not even wine and dine me. You're just gonna get right to it.
Oh yeah, we're skipping straight through dinner. There's no, we got no time for that. If I stop talking for a minute, just assume I'm coughing. That's what's happening over here. Yeah, no wine and a dining. We're recording the show, by the way, late on Valentine's Day evening. It'll be airing on Friday morning. Yeah, so let's start with the weird and then transition towards the good. First and foremost, you can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Aaron Bruski, at Dan Besbris, at Hoopball Fantasy. Anthony Davis, I guess the question we'll just start with is, do you think he plays after the All-Star break? I keep going back and forth. I think he does, but I don't know how much.
Man, It's a really interesting story. I mean, and there's no clear answer here, so we're really all just reading tea leaves. I do think the All-Star break matters. I think it matters in a lot of situations across the league. So, but this one's just so it's weird. Like, it doesn't make sense for anybody involved. I mean, the NBA looks dumb, the team looks dumb, Anthony Davis looks dumb. And the only thing I can think of is that Rich Paul made a leverage play to say, okay, guys, if you don't deal him to Los Angeles, you're going to have to deal with him in uniform on the court, kind of wrecking your team for the rest of the year. That's the only thing that adds up. And the league even offered some pushback because there was the story and a couple of stories, I might add, that said that the league was going to fine him $100,000 per day. And there was a line in Jeff Zilgett's piece for USA Today that was along the lines of that, it's not something that the New Orleans Pelicans want to pay. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, $2.5 million or whatever the number would be for this situation. You might spend $2.5 million on takeout if you're the Pelicans. Who knows? So it was weird. It was a little bit leaked that there was a money aspect of this, and the league came back and said, we just said based on what you guys presented to us that we're not, in support of your reason for pulling him off the court. And you've started to hear rumblings about the NBPA being involved. And to me, and this is why I tweeted this about however many days ago, 5 days ago, is like, I want to know the legal rationale for what's going on here, because some sort of threat had to have been made. Something in the realm of not antitrust, but you're depriving me of my ability to play, and I'm Anthony Davis. That means there's no way you can say to anybody I shouldn't be on the floor, which is different than Enes Kanter. It's different than any of these other situations that have popped up where a team effectively benches a guy because he's not in their future plans. So everybody sort of said, no, this isn't us. The league's like, no, this isn't us. And now you have the last night for Anthony Davis was just a total bleep show. And yeah, I do think things could change. But this is the NBA and this is New Orleans, and that's a football team running a basketball team. And I guess since it's already happened once, it to me feels like it could happen again, where you were literally risking your entire franchise because this guy wants to play basketball. Well, go to the 24-hour fitness, dude. Play basketball over there if you want to play basketball. I don't get it. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. But I guess in a bit of good news for me personally, I made a big old bid on Jahlil Okafor, and it does appear like they want him on the floor.
Yeah, that's the good news. That was going to be my segue in this part of the show, which is Okafor, who, I'll admit I was way down on him. I figured that he would get his time and Anthony Davis would come back, and then that would be the end of it. And it seemed like that might be the case, but as it turned out, Okafor just had a poorly timed ankle injury right as AD was coming back, and then they decided they wanted to play them together. So to me, and again, everything that we do, Brew, on the fantasy side is trying to get a feel for what an organization wants to see happen. And playing Okafor alongside Anthony Davis, to me, was a pretty clear indicator that they want him out there the rest of the season, regardless of the rest of this tornado going on the team. And that's a big deal.
It is. And, we noted early in the season that he looked like he was in shape. And we're not sitting here saying that Jahlil Okafor is different. I mean, I've been pretty rough on the guy, for the last 3 years, that he's not really, all that good. But to his credit, he dealt with stuff off the floor, in his personal life, and was, came back stronger for it. And he also got in shape. And so he could easily just be a good fantasy center, scoring, rebounding, a couple defensive stats here and there. He's actually, I wonder about the New Orleans scorekeepers thing, because, all of a sudden he's stealing and blocking. It seems like a little bit more. So yeah, I think that was a great sign to see him start next to AD, and I wouldn't have dropped him anyway, because I just think that, Davis can't keep doing this to himself. The writers in New Orleans are pretty much apocalyptic about it. I think everybody's over it. If he can't keep going out on the home floor and having, this result, and, something's got to give. So I'm going to hang on to Okafor no matter what, unless things get really bad. But I also expect him. He was doing top 20 value there for a bit.
Yeah, the beauty of the situation is that he's playing even if AD's in there, and obviously that's going to chip into his ability to do anything in the front court, but he's the de facto center between the two of them. So that's something that you talk about a lot, Brew, is you want the guy who's playing closest to the rim when you're picking up a big guy, because you get the efficiency stuff, you get the opportunities for blocked shots near the rim as guards come in there. I mean, AD's obviously going to get his defensive stats because he has the wingspan of a pterodactyl. But with Okafor, if he's chasing people around near the three-point line, his whole game can evaporate because he's just not long or fast enough. If people are coming to him, that's the opportunity to get blocked shots and rebounds and putbacks on the offensive end. And I'm very high on him as well. And like I said a minute ago, I wasn't before. I'm the first to admit that. I thought that his time was done last week, but I am flipping, and I am flipping hard, because him being in that starting lineup with AD is a big, big sign. Here's another guy who moved into a starting lineup this week, Dario Saric, and he's looked really good spacing the floor with the rest of the Timberwolves that largely can't space the floor. I know that the word from Ryan Saunders was that, they'd stick with this for a while. I would find it hard to believe that they'll ever go back to Taj. This feels like a much better fit just from a, who should be playing with one another standpoint, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like Taj was a bridge between the old team and obviously Tibbs to this new team, and they just did it slower than folks would have hoped for. Saric is, got two gears, what we've seen through the years. He's got what we've seen this year,
Yeah.
which is not good. And he did that in his first year. And then there was last year, which he was great. And it seems like he's heading down that road. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he's got to be owned in standard leagues. That's, he's a great fit for this squad. And really, if you trade for him and Robert Covington, well, I mean, what are you doing if you don't get him on the floor? And Taj Gibson's probably not a part of your future. So it seems like they've turned the page and, just one of really, a lot of pickups right now.
Yeah,
for
I
owners
love
to
it.
consider.
Those are two of my favorites. Are they up near the top of your list as well?
I mean, without having a list of names in front of me, yeah. I mean, Okafor is, like I said, I had about $240 fab dollars left the other day, 3 weeks ago, and Okafor was sitting there, and I put out 200 of them because this to me was, this guy could go 20-10 with a couple defensive stats if he gets let loose, the rest of the way. It's not hard to see. So
yeah, that's true.
He's really high up there. There's others though. There's a lot of hate out there. A lot of hate for Thomas Bryant. There's a lot of hate for guys like, Kent Bazemore.
I have a little bit of that. I'll admit it. I've got a little hate for, well, not so much Bazemore as the situation that Atlanta's created for him, which was, they sat him out for the, month and a half or 2 months with the sprained ankle, and now they won't let him get over 16 minutes a game. I mean, he only really needs to get to like 21 to be there, and they haven't let him clear 19 since he's come back.
My hope there, obviously, we all got Bazemore, and he was doing so good. And then what happens with Atlanta is somebody gets hurt, and then they hold him out a whole long time. It's like a clever tank that they do. And my hope is that they're looking at this All-Star break and saying, "Hey, no need to push you right now. Let's let you get a little, playing time underneath your belt, and get some break a sweat going, and then." At the other side of the break, bring you back into a more normal role. And what we're seeing is he still just condenses the stats into those lower minute roles. So for a top 50 guy that doesn't have a ton of talent around him, Kevin Huerter is good and he's going to get minutes. So that's definitely not great. But when you get rid of Jeremy Lin and you basically are saying, look, all of our guys can handle the ball, we'll play Kent Bazemore, backup point guard. That opens up a window there. I'm not convinced DeAndre Bembry is going to, just kind of surge into the front of this thing. Taurean Prince, he's an interesting cat right now. He also needs an all-star break. There are a lot of players that need an all-star break, but I think there's possibly, a way. And if you look at, they say they're not going to buy out, Who's our guy that's the center of the Hawks?
Dwayne Dedman would be that guy.
That guy.
Yeah,
that guy. They say they're not going to buy him out, but who knows? Maybe they will. There's minutes to go around. I like Baze in 25 minutes. I think at 25 minutes he could still be a top 75 guy as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, we got to figure out a way to get him there. Get there. Come on, Kent. By the way, word on the Valentine's evening games is that Julius Okafor will be coming off the bench. So my enthusiasm tempered ever so slightly. Julius Randle starting at power forward and Anthony Davis at center. Does that change anything for you on that front?
No, not really. I think that Anthony Davis is the night before All-Star break in this situation. But no, I mean, Anthony Davis probably gets, 27 minutes, 24 minutes. They're not burning him up at this point in time. So you still get the 24 minutes, I think, out of Okafor. And that's enough. Especially in that system, it's enough for him to at least put up late round value and probably more with the way that team's rolling.
Next stop on the wild list of potential pickups, and I didn't think I'd get to this part, is, and I know this is a weird direction to take because I got so many places I can go. I got all these 3-point specialists that are surfacing I want to talk to you about. We got the Grizzlies with all their new guys, Washington with their new guys, Dallas, Denver's getting guys back that are hurt, not trade stuff. But I got to go to Robin Lopez as the next name on my list. I never thought I'd get to say his name on a podcast this year, at least not in a positive manner. But he's played 30 minutes or more in a couple games in a row, and he's looked good. And there's literally nobody else besides Cristiano Felicio, who as we talked about, Brew, he has the worst metrics of any player in the NBA. So if you really wanted a tank, you got to get Felicio in there. But Jim Boylan, I think, is confident that they can tank just with his coaching style. Could this actually keep up? Could Robin Lopez actually play 30 minutes a game the rest of the way?
If he makes it past the buyout deadline, because at that point, then it's like if they put Felicio out there, it's going to hurt everybody. And right now they got some guys that are struggling. Chris Dunn's struggling. Otto Porter's getting fit in, so he's helped out in this regard. But your depth at forward isn't great, so it's important to have somebody who knows where to stand, can like do a couple things out there, not be totally terrible. So I see them keeping him on the floor, but if he wants to get bought out and he wants to go to another team and play for a contender, then that's going to end it right there. And I don't know, it's easy to get value at the center position if you're not terrible, but Robin has been pretty terrible, over the last couple of years. Not really being able to cross that top 130, 140 threshold. So, I mean, if you need a big man, go for it. You're not going to find too many situations like this where you got a guy that's pretty much locked into minutes. Outside of that, I don't think there's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a weird scenario. He's obviously an expiring contract, which is why he could get bought out. He's also now suddenly being given a role where he can maybe play himself into a future contract. So he's got a lot of things he wants to consider in this moment. And, being bought out, partially a player's decision, I guess. A team could just buy a guy out and kick him to the curb. But right now it seems like they're using him. So I don't know. I mean, there's so many guys floating around, but
the location, what's the job he's stepping into? I'm sure, going to the Warriors would be fun, but is that in the cards for them?
I don't know. And wherever he's going, he's probably playing 13 minutes, 14 minutes, maybe, and he's getting 30 in Chicago all of a sudden. Sometimes guys would rather just play and get their butts kicked. So we shall see. We shall see. Marc Gasol, let's talk about another very large man. His minutes have not been impressive in Toronto so far. I was feeling optimistic after Game 2 when his 19 minutes became 22. Game 3, they dropped back down to 19 again. And, he ended up having 2 steals and 2 blocks, which salvaged what was otherwise a fairly quiet ball game. They have to eventually integrate him into a mid-20s role, wouldn't you think? I mean, they just traded for an aging all-star center and gave up DeLon Wright and gave up JV. Did they really bring him in just to play Valanciunas' 19 minutes? That seems like it would be a weird move.
The short answer is no. I think they brought him in to play 25 minutes. That's the reality of that front court there, is they got so many good players in a league gone small that, and when you start to take away the things that Gasol does well offensively, because you want the ball in Kawhi Leonard's hands, you want the ball in Kyle Lowry's hands, you want the ball in Pascal Siakam's hands. You got a long list of players there that need the ball. You also got Serge Ibaka, who operates in a lot of the same places that Marc Gasol operates in. So I think once you take away some of the things he does on offense, now you're asking, okay, well, what does he really bring on defense? And yeah, there's this sort of cult of Gasol out there, from people that don't really know better. He's good, really good at times, but the lateral quickness issues you just can't get around. And whether the stuff we've seen on film in Memphis is just the byproduct of being in a situation doesn't want to be in anymore, that's fair. I also think this all-star break is going to be a theme with a lot of players. There's no reason to go big before the break on all of these things when you can take a week off and really study the offense and then hang out with maybe a lot of guys just go to Mexico, but hang out with your teammates, talk to coaches, get mentally geared up, get guys that are playing right now. It's like that whole new guy syndrome. When you're the new guy, you don't come in and tell everybody what to do, unless you're Marvin Bagley. If you're, Gasol and you're those other players, it makes sense to take the big gap of time, during the break and say, okay, hey, after this, look at our playoff rotation. 25 minutes for Gasol is where I'm going to target.
So maybe even a little bit of a buy low right now with him in the 19-minute range. You think owners are panicking at all?
I think his name value is too high. I think when you hear Marc Gasol, you think fourth round, or some people even think like second round. And so right now they might sell him for a mid-rounder. And what you're really hoping is that somebody is just panicked out of their mind and is looking at a top 100 guy or a top 90 or even a top 80 guy. And if you can make that happen, that's just a no-brainer to me, because you're probably going to get top 90, top 100, no matter what, in a very, very worst case scenario. More likely, you're going to get like top 60. So if you can flip a top 80 or a top 90, then you're doing it right.
All right, let's talk about another big guy with lateral quickness issues, a new member of the Portland Trail Blazers. His name is Enes Kanter. Picked the Blazers, which I don't know that... I don't know. I wasn't even really thinking about it. They got Yusuf Nurkic out there. They had Zach Collins and Myers Leonard that had been playing minutes at the 5. It wasn't a team that I was expecting to hear. But then you dig a little deeper, you realize that the massive season Nurkic is having, he's actually doing it at about 27 minutes a game. So his workload has not been overwhelming. They're not afraid to sit him when he's not having a great game. I think he only played 24, 25 minutes against the Warriors. He was fine, but he was unspectacular. What do you think we could get out of Kanter in this one? I was looking at his last couple years in Oklahoma City, where he was sitting around 20, 21 minutes as maybe a decent barometer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, there's going to be an integration period there that could make things a little awkward. He also needs to get his game shape back on. He's been sitting the bench for a while, so you might just scratch the first 4 games off and say, these 4 games we're expecting them to not be great. If he does well, great. But yeah, that 20-minute range is probably right on. And he's actually, he compiled his way to a top 60 season in that kind of a role. Now, that one was pretty leveraged. The Thunder needed him to be that good, and that's not the case here in Portland. But they're not exactly teaming with all sorts of offensive juggernauts there. So I do think, and the other thing I like about this is he is going to play a lot like Yusuf Nurkic in just the style of play, the screen setting, the fact that Nurk wants to get the ball on the block every once in a while. So it's not completely foreign that this player comes in, gets a couple post-entry passes, and can start to get a rhythm on offense. And then, of course, he's going to make his bones on the offensive glass. And you do have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum who like to shoot jumpers, so it's not exactly like they're getting to the rim a whole lot, but they do put pressure on a defense, and that's what you're hoping for when you're working the offensive glass.
Where does that put him from a ranking standpoint? Top 110-ish? I forget. I honestly just forget where he was 2 or 3 years ago.
I think top 100 is definitely in play. Like, I think I would bet that he's a top 100 guy.
That's not bad.
Top 80 upside, on a per game basis. So that plays. In my leagues, top 150 plays, top 130 plays, so obviously that makes him a must-add player in those formats. But I think he's a must-add player in just standard kind of beginner to intermediate 12-team leagues as well.
Hey, everybody, we got all these amazing pickups, and I've been loading up on them. I admit, my team has changed dramatically over the last 3 days. Okafor is on my teams. I added Cody Zeller last week when he came back from injury. I added Enes Kanter, Dario Saric. And I'm forgetting. I even added a Robin Lopez in one spot, where I desperately needed centers, and I figured I'd load up on them a little bit. But that means we need to find guys that we can drop. Like I said, I basically decided I had given up on Bazemore. I don't think I can hold him anymore. The long layoff with him being injured and now just not giving him enough minutes to be relevant, I decided that I was going to part ways with him there. Other guys that I feel like maybe have some upside, like Kent Bazemore, but maybe not enough. Who else, Brew, is on your, okay, maybe this guy, he looks like he could be decent, but these other dudes, their names popping up, I need to clear out a roster spot for them. Would you, and we haven't talked about the Grizzlies yet, so maybe I jumped the gun with this question, but would you make a preemptive drop of a guy like Kenneth Faried with Capella due back after the break?
I didn't hear the name of the guy that you said.
Oh, the Manimal. Kenneth Faried, the Manimal.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna. There's a dunker role in that offense, and that's gonna be, Clint Capella when he gets back. So Faried, Might stay a tiny bit productive, but yeah, he's definitely gone. And talking about Bays, like he's definitely somebody you can drop, like Jaleel Okafor. I drop Bays for Jaleel Okafor. Now, when you start talking about like an Ennis Cancer, though, I gotta ask myself, do I need just low and slow production out of somebody? No headaches. Just and granted, we don't know how Portland's going to use him, but it feels pretty solid that he's going to get that 20 minutes and just get top 100. And you need that, so you just go and you say, I don't want to deal with Kent Bazemore anymore. I'll go do that. But for upside purposes, Bazemore can be in an 8-cat league a top 50 guy. In a 9-cat league, maybe more top 70-ish. And that might be a delineating factor for some folks. But yeah, no, around the league.
So let's talk Grizzlies, and then we'll loop back to this same question.
Yeah, there's a couple drop candidates on the Grizzlies, actually.
Yeah, that's why I started to do this one, and then I thought, man, we really should have talked Memphis and or Washington before I asked who might potentially be addable or droppable. Grizzlies, with Conley healthy, a lot of guys are getting minutes in that backcourt, and that's a pisser, because we were hoping it would really be a massive thinning of the herd. Delon Wright looked good. In his fill-in game, he didn't make many shots, but his other stuff was there, and then he played 26 minutes when Conley was healthy in a blowout loss, which is also, like, there's a small question mark next to what that actually means going forward. Avery Bradley popped off for 33 points in a game and then came back and actually had 15 and 5 the next time out. Which of these, I mean, obviously Mike Conley is a guy that people are going to hang on to, and Jonas Valanciunas looks like just a wonder. Okay, why don't we start there, and then we'll come to the guards. Can we celebrate JV yet? Can we roll out the banner?
I think so.
Yeah, banner time.
He played right away and did well out there, and he's going to probably get the minutes that he's never gotten. And it is funny, like, we looked at JV as this safety blanket, in the middle rounds of drafts, so you didn't get the center early, and then you go with JV because what could happen? I mean, he's going to play 19 minutes and get you top 100 at a minimum. And lo and behold, he gets a hand injury that, is totally bad luck, has nothing to do really with anything. And now he gets the reverse good luck of landing in a place where they'll actually play him. So yeah, he's good to go. And that's going to be fun to watch. Bad news for Ivan Rabb. That guy needed a lot of minutes.
So he's a drop. He goes on the list of guys you can dump. Okay, that's one on the list. I'm adding him in there. Very good.
I think Kyle Anderson's got to go. I think it sucks because he had this great opportunity, and I mean, I probably want to wait. This is a great time in All-Star Week to wait on something like this.
Right.
I mean, maybe you got to make a move because you got to make a move, but like, if we hear Kyle Anderson's healthy, good to go, he's got a week off, he's going to play on the other side of the break, you're looking at probably 25 to 27 minutes per game for him. And that's good enough to get him late round value. So then you think, okay, there could be upside after that. If on the off chance they start to thin out somehow, that could help him out. But when you look at just the glut of wings that they brought in and some of the thought process of why do you bring in Avery Bradley? Also, why do you play him? And it might be because they know that they're going to be thin with Kyle Anderson possibly out for a little bit. And they don't want to play him in a lost season. He was available for emergency status the other day. I thought that was interesting, but that he couldn't, turn the corner on it was also equally as interesting. With Avery Bradley, he kind of ruined it for everybody else. He, to me, seems like the guy that they want to give a bunch of minutes to, give, shooting responsibilities, and probably just to make themselves look good, on a trade. This could easily be a general manager-based playing time decision that we see so much around the league. But Delon Wright did good, and it could be the case that Mike Conley gets shut down this year. There's no reason for him to play. He could easily just do I'm taking every other day off. He could, just call it a year whenever he feels like it. And in that case, Delon Wright. So if he's producing the way he's producing right now, you got yourself a really good asset there. So I'm going to hang on to him. Bruno looks good. It's not consistent, but it looks good. Congrats to him.
So, I mean, this is Avery Bradley, is there a format where he could actually sustain fantasy value, or is he just a wrench in the wheel?
I think he's just a wrench in the wheel. I mean, he could eke out late round value. I mean, if he's scoring 16 a game and, hitting a couple threes and, getting 4 boards or something, and a steal, that'll generally add up to late round value. So he could be somebody you look at in a pinch. You might look at him as a streamer option right now and think, wait, what happens if Avery Bradley of Boston returns to the scene, and you might get a late round player out of it. I don't think there's enough excitement out there, for 12 to 14 team owners to bend over backwards to get him. But it's created a bunch of drops. I mean, Kyle Anderson, you can look at dropping him. You can look at Justin Holiday, and then you can even fade Bruno Caboclo's upside in that he might not get enough minutes and touches for it all to even out the right way. So it's been a bummer, but I do like Delon Wright still. So, good for him.
Yeah, he's the one that feels like if things break his way a little bit, that it could get over that hump. How many minutes do you think Wright needs to get to be fantasy relevant? Is it 25? Is it 27?
I think he could do it in 23. Now that might be more on the say 150 to 175 players leagues, but 23 minutes. I think he can be a top 130 guy in 23 minutes per game. That plays in a lot of leagues, and it plays in the sense that if you have that at the end of your bench, you can rely on it, and then you hope for the upside to kick in at some point.
The upside kicks in at 27 minutes?
Look, if Mike Conley takes the rest of the season off at any point, then he's getting 31 minutes per game, and then you're looking at, top 75 or above.
That's not bad. I suppose I could take that. All right, next stop on the list, Washington, the land of the Wiz, the land of 5 wings on the floor at any given time. They've completely abandoned traditional NBA lineups, which I guess is kind of interesting, if for no other reason than it's something, when they're running out the the Beal, Ariza. Wait, let me see if I can get all the names right on this. Beal, Ariza, Jabari Parker, Jeff Green, Bobby Portis lineup, where the smallest guy is Bradley Beal, and Portis is basically like a power forward playing center, and Jeff Green has played center at times for this team this year. It's been, and they got Sato, who's like a 6'6" point guard also, missing a couple games here with personal stuff, but he's generally seeing time as well. They're not playing any defense, which has created a magical fantasy landscape, but which of these guys, and then, Thomas Bryant, who gets his 16 to 19 center minutes, and he's been like a top 105 guy, and all we really want is for him to get 2 to 3 more minutes a game, but they won't freaking give it to him. Let's go through these guys one by one. I think that's the only way for me to not lose my mind.
I mean, the Thomas Bryant stuff, and the same thing with Rashawn Holmes. They had a long-time listener tweeting at both of us a couple weeks ago, like, people are losing because of Rashawn Holmes. No, Rashawn Holmes had a top 50 stretch that ended maybe 3 games, and sometimes you just got to look at the numbers. Like, and the same thing with Thomas Bryant. He's been good, not great, but he's only getting the 19 minutes per game. And you got this all-star break sitting right there. Scott Brooks, and I'm kind of an expert on this guy. He is very rigid he, for the longest time, and this was before it was really in vogue, he would play Tapo Cephalosha the 16 minutes or the 22 minutes in the starting shooting guard position, and he kept James Harden coming off the bench, and it just sort of drove all those players batty, but it was consistent every single night. It was the same exact thing, and that's what he's doing with Thomas Bryant right now. How long he can get away with playing these small lineups and just getting crushed and not looking at Thomas Bryant at all in these situations is, you can do it for the rest of the year. But I'm comfortable with, if he gets 19 minutes per game, he's going to get you late round value. And then, I mean, Jeff Green is really the linchpin here, because he's the only one that kind of can credibly play center. Bobby Portis can't play center. Jabari Parker can't play center. It's just not. It's not right.
Can Jeff Green really score? I mean, he's averaging almost 20 points a game outside of his hip games. Can that really keep up? Jeff Green's been the turn back the clock style.
Jeff Green yelled at John Wall in practice.
Attaboy. Way to go, Jeff Green.
I mean, this is all about, and that's what Scott Brooks does, is he completely values veteran, presence, wherever it is. It does not matter what's going on the court whatsoever. It's his way of controlling the locker room. And so this could be the case for the rest of the year. Jeff Green could easily be a rock solid fantasy option the rest of the way. And when you add in Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker, it gets really interesting real fast. It doesn't change anything for the center equation, with Thomas Bryant. They've just sort of backfilled the minutes for Sam Decker and others. But
okay, so let's play a little top 100, not top 100 game on some of these guys. The rest of the way. Jeff Green, inside or outside the top 100?
He's like, I can play a game. All these guys are top 100, like right on the dot.
Yeah, that's true. Jeff, over the last 2 weeks, by the way,
it's fun to go, okay, would it be over, would it be under? It's kind of challenging. Like, yeah, I think Jeff Green, if he's healthy, he probably trips over it. If Jabari Parker is healthy, I think he goes slightly under it. I think Bobby Portis actually has the chance to make, top 80 a possibility. And how about that? I mean, this guy.
Yeah, he's been great since coming to Washington. He's banging down threes and shooting
all over the board. Like, gets going fast early in Chicago, then hurts his knee, then gets stuck in the trade machine and, then lands in Washington. He's dead to rights. Oh, wait, no, he's going to score whatever he scored the other night, like 36 points.
The Wizards are creating fantasy value. Their style of play right now, I know it's not winning a whole lot, but damn,
Ariza.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Ariza's going off, Sato's going off, Beal's going off, and hopefully Thomas Bryant, because that's a good pickup a lot of people made, and it just hasn't quite cashed in yet.
The scores for Wizards games, just as a point of reference lately, they lost to Toronto, and we'll just do totals, forget each of the two sides. 249 combined points in their most recent game, a scant 233 the game before that. They had one with Chicago that got to 259. Yowza. 225 with Cleveland. I think that Milwaukee game, was that an overtime game? That was regulation. That one was 277 combined points. The one before that was 266. These are crazy high scoring games. This is like beginning of the year Sacramento Kings stuff, and it's just created this magical environment where everybody is getting to some point. Like Bradley Beal's been a top 15 guy since John Wall went down. He's been a monster. So, I think I agree with basically every one of the things that you picked. That Jeff Green just slightly on the better than 100 side. Parker, because he will weigh you down with free throw percent and he doesn't hit the three-pointer and little things like that sort of end up weighing against you. Maybe on the other side, Ariza inside. Bryant, I forget what you said with him. I've got him just outside the top 100 for my rest of season because I don't trust Scott Brooks, and I don't think you do either.
I don't, but I think like sometimes your hand gets forced. Like there's gonna be a time when they're way out of the playoffs, and it's probably already right now. Let's see, they're 3 games out where they internally say, all right, we got to see what Thomas Bryant can do in 22 minutes per game. Like Brooks. Give him 3 extra minutes. That's gonna happen, I think, at some point. So I'm gonna go over top 100.
All right.
For Thomas Bryant.
Fair enough. Who am I missing on this team? Am I forgetting anybody? I don't think so. Maybe someone will let us know.
Randall screwed me in DFS the other day.
Yeah, forget that guy. He's also part of that. You get to start
dead last again, Dan.
Oh well, I didn't even
time not dead last. I was like third to last. Then.
It was a good one to join, too, because we got this like all-star break lower turnout, so it was a better opportunity to win. Of course, my laptop fried as I was setting my lineup. He's part of the Thomas Bryant All-Stars that gets to start for Scott Brooks, but only gets to play 16 minutes once you get in the ball game. You can play the first 7.
What's Kendrick Perkins up to? Like, if you told me Kendrick Perkins was going to get a 10-day with Washington, I would not bet against you.
No, he'd start, man. He goes straight into the starting 5, no question.
Teach everybody veteran leadership.
That's right, veteran leadership. You cannot overstate the impact of veteran leadership. What about Dallas? They look like a team that's trying to tank right now, don't they? They're mix and matching lineups that don't make any sense. They've got some guys that are intriguing, but they've basically just been letting Doncic try to do everything himself, and it's looked pretty disjointed and goofy. Is this a team that comes out of the All-Star break looking better after just a little rest and maybe an opportunity to get a practice in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, they get a pass there for stuff like this. You expect Rick Carlisle to put it all together and everybody to be pretty good, but they have a talent disadvantage. I mean, that's pretty clear. You got Jalen Brunson, who's kind of bottom of the league at his position. Trey Burke, kind of was watching him to see if he could actually do something there, but no dice so far there. I haven't seen anything really out of Courtney Lee. Dorian Finney-Smith can mop a bunch of minutes and not provide fantasy value. It's the bigs we're all watching. We want to see Kleber and Powell get consistently good. But even their bad nights aren't hurting you so much. So, if you picked up either of those guys at them through the break, maybe they get into this discussion of who would you rather have. I probably would take a Bazemore over either of those guys right now. Just because I think the upside isn't quite there for them. And you do worry a little bit about Dirk and it turning into a bit of a sideshow there. The counter to that is if Luka Doncic gets good at integrating both of those players into the offense somehow, then you start to see some scoring numbers kick in, more consistent production, and things tend to get better in all areas when players are getting touches and they're a part of everything. They tend to try harder on defense. So
rising tide thing, that whole phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
Denver. One of your guys, Isaiah Thomas. I think I know that sometimes I say, "Hey, this is your guy," and you're like, "No, I just followed this guy." But IT really is one of your guys. You've been watching him. You've been watching him basically get the shaft from GMs in the league. And if you're Anthony Davis Sr., you say Danny Ainge. And he's back, and he logged, I think it was 12, 13 minutes in his first game back. Is there a universe where he could actually play enough to have fantasy value? Denver's pretty deep, and I think Gary Harris is supposed to be back after the break also to go along with guys like Monty Morris, Malik Beasley, Jamal Murray. Denver's good. I mean, IT is good. There's no question about that. If he's healthy, he's good, but is there room?
I almost wonder if this is going to come out of some of the big guns buckets, because what you've seen so far is guys like Malik Beasley, the Juancho Hernan Gomez Hernan Gomez has shrunk a little bit lately, but like they don't go away. The Monty Morrises, they don't go away. You would think like, okay, it's time to get Jamal Murray going. No, we're going to go with Monty Morris, and it's working. And I think what I see in his future is about 20 to 24 minutes. He's not a primary out there. So I think he's going to fall short in fantasy leagues. And but the good news is he's got his coach's support, and he played really smartly in that first game. Like really just kind of deferred when he needed to defer, but was aggressive and made the right play a number of times. And I think he like a lot of players in his position, once you're faced with NBA mortality, you start to approach the game differently, and you come with a little bit sharper, balance, whether it's, getting my shot or getting others involved. When he was out there in Cleveland and in LA, you saw Monty Morris is like, I don't understand why everybody's talking trash about this guy. Like, Isaiah's come in here and all he said is like, let's get better. This is the guy he's competing with for playing time. Let's get better. Not, hey, I'm going to sit over here. I ain't going to tell you nothing because you're stealing my minutes. And he got just wrecked from a public relations standpoint about what kind of a teammate he was, probably because he spoke truth to power. And you know what, IT, he's also done some silly stuff. Like, I don't think, he's completely in the clear here as far as being maybe an irritant at times, or, even some of the stuff like he said recently on Twitter. I'm like, dude, you got to just chill, man. That's not cool. And, But at the same time, this is a guy who really got hit hard by the LeBron machine. Team ESPN just lit him up for no reason, just to keep LeBron happy. And it affected his play. He's a guy that hears every word. He probably heard these words. But that's how he's been as great as he's been.
Well, if that's the case, hello, Isaiah. What's up, man?
We got Isaiah on the pod. We got
that's right.
Sean Holmes' family.
I love it, man. I love interacting with the Holmes family.
I'm glad to know you're close with them now, Dan.
Yeah, I think it was his brother Richard, right? That he was digging on my tweet about what if Rashawn Holmes could just have a legitimate point guard near him in Phoenix. Although we could say that about a lot of guys on the Suns, couldn't we? Like if they had a legitimate point guard.
I'm glad you noticed because sometimes I don't tweet everything I see. I was watching the Holmes the other night and I was sitting there going, yeah, that's not right. Like he's probably hurt. And that if you wondering about some of the stagnation in his stats lately, he probably came back a little too early from the foot injury and the All-Star break will do him a lot of good.
Yeah, I agree. He could be an interesting guy coming out of it. And we don't know exactly how the minutes are going to break down, but as we've said before, he only needs 16. Cleveland is the last official stop on our tour because we've seen Larry Nance playing very well lately, although minutes, as you've said many times in the past, when they get this high for him, unfortunately injury usually follows. Tristan Thompson doesn't seem like he might play it all the rest of the way. Kevin Love, we heard he might actually be without restrictions coming out of the All-Star break. I think Joe Varden tweeted that. And then Marquise Chris has been oddly decent lately, which... Get him out of Phoenix, get a fresh start. He does look like a man rejuvenated. What are your thoughts on those four big men in Cleveland? Is there enough room for more than two of them? I get the feeling it's going to be Love and Nance once everything settles.
Yeah, I mean, I have Chris in a couple leagues that have really deep rosters, and had him all year because really deep rosters. And you looked at the Cleveland thing and dumpster fire was built for Marquise Chris, and so he gets in there. Not a surprise at all that he's getting numbers now, but it's going to be hard for him with a full slate of players there, even without Tristan Thompson. I think pardon me as I hiccup here a whole bunch. I think what you do is you gamble if you can afford to gamble. Like this is the time of year where either you are chasing and trying to make up distance if you're in first place and you're just you're not even looking at top 100 guys, you're just looking for people that can break out because you're already set, you have a great team, you can afford to play that way. It's that I've heard you talk about it a couple times, is that 2 to 4 to 5 range that you're got to kind of play straight and narrow with it. Those are the leagues I probably don't go after Marquise Chris in, because I need to hit something, like the Dallas forwards, Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell. It's like, I know I'm going to get top 100 out of these guys. I can't afford to get zeros. I can't afford to get these low stat lines. And Marquise Chris sucks. Like, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but he's not good. And maybe he will be good one day. And maybe he's perfect for Cleveland, though. I mean, that's the counterweight to this. But I do recall a time when he could trip and fall in 20 minutes per game and get you late round value. So if he still has that athleticism, and that's a question I've always had with him, is does he have, we all see him get up for dunks and he's got this leaping ability, but does he have the side to side quickness? Does he have the second jump? Does he have the strength to get in there and bang and not get knocked off his spot in order to get big block and steal numbers in low minutes per game, which is what he's looking at if Kevin Love and Larry Nance are playing, and heaven forbid Tristan Thompson comes back and plays ball.
And the last thing on today's program is not an actual stop in the NBA, but actually more of a category in the NBA, and that's three-pointers. And I know they're easier to find these days, but every once in a while, some guys surface that look like they might be able to hit a truly elite volume of them. And I wanted your thoughts on 4 names that, to me, have surfaced and which way you're looking on this one. Those 4 names are Alan Crabb, back from injury with Brooklyn, Reggie Bullock traded from the Pistons to the Lakers and immediately thrown into the starting five. Wayne Ellington, who in only his second game in Detroit played 33 bench minutes and took 10 three-pointers. And Landry Shamet in Clippertown, who's been just shooting the lights out, probably at an unsustainable rate. How did these guys pan out for you? I mean, I think anybody that's listened to the show knows that I have this weird soft spot for Wayne Ellington, because if you're going to take 10 to 12 three-pointers a game, that's a pretty cool number to throw onto a fantasy team. But what do you like or dislike about these four guys?
Hit me with the names again, because we had a bad connection there.
Curse you, Internet. The names are Landry Shamet, Wayne Ellington, Reggie Bullock, and Alan Crabb.
So, Crab's going to have a hard time. I think we could throw him at the bottom of the list.
I agree.
There's too many players there. The Bullock thing is interesting because he's got this kind of defensive potential that, they don't have. Everybody thinks that Josh Hart's a good defender, but he's really not. He could actually emerge there. But I don't like having to say could. I like looking at Wayne Ellington and going, they ain't got nobody that does what he does. And yeah, you could say Luke Kennard does it, but great. He's also on the radar right now. Wayne Ellington is there to shoot threes, and it's going to happen. And he's going to hit probably, 2.6 for the rest of the season.
I'm going over, by the way. I'm taking the over that number.
I think, I didn't want to get ahead of myself. It's very possible he gets over 3.
And then you got to have him, right? If guys, I know that three-pointers are not as hard to find, but I mean, you can break down a category by, the leaders in the NBA. There are only 7 guys in the NBA that are hitting three-pointers a game. Steph Curry, James Harden, Paul George, Buddy Hield, Kemba Walker, J.J. Redick, and Klay Thompson. That's pretty special company.
It boils out to about top 100 value, and that is enough to justify must-own status in those 12-team leagues, assuming he goes forward and does it. There's some question about, sitting on the shelf all year, going to a new team. It's fair to wonder, can he actually pull it off? I like that over a Bullock, even though I think Bullock is the more interesting player to me. He's spent all this time in Detroit where it's just kind of a mess. And now you go to a place where you do play with LeBron James, Rajon Rondo. They need your shooting. He could be on the uptick. He could be an emerging player that we haven't really wrapped our heads around. And then Landry Shamet, I was looking at him before he had his first big game in LA, thinking this is a guy that stuck some shots for Philly, didn't get a lot of opportunity there. And, he probably slots in the third slot for me because he doesn't do a whole lot else. And, we just got to see. It's hard to put a rookie in the same category as somebody like a Wayne Ellington or Reggie Bullock. So he goes 3 for me. But Bullock and Ellington, yeah, they're interesting, and those kind of stuff is interesting for.
And Brew, since you've taken us through a tour de force of the post-deadline NBA, figured it might be not a bad time to throw out the always venerable softball we'll bring to you here on Fantasy NBA today, and that's what's going on at the Hoob, man. What's up at Hoopball HQ these days?
The Hoob is kicking. I'm very excited about the development work that I continue to oversee with guys Thomas and Ryan and Amar Preet. They're just kicking ass over there. Fantasy writing wise, the current crew is doing an amazing job. We're bringing on some new guys that we're really excited about. So that's moving well. Premium sales are good. We're just sort of cruising along and already talking about next year. So I think one thing we are trying to do is round out our writing squad a little bit on the fantasy side. So if anybody's out there that wants to try their hand at fantasy writing, if they think they've got the chops, that's something that we're about probably like 1 or 2 team members from having a full squad.
All right.
So
hit us up is what you're saying.
Yeah, hit us up. And, I can't talk about a lot of stuff because of the fancy new non-disclosure agreements that came in the mail, which we are now going to be distributing internally because there are such big ideas.
Here, I'll sign one here while we're finishing up the show if you like.
If everybody could just sign, while they're eating, and send it back to us while they've got food on their NDA. That
Yeah,
would be great. No,
absolutely.
It's good. I'll say this though, Dan. I'm looking forward to 4 days off.
Oh, yeah. Hey, last 2 minutes of the show. Who do you like for the 3-point contest? Who do you like for the dunk contest?
Dan, what are the odds on Buddy Hield?
The odds on Buddy Hield? I'm glad you asked. I'll pull them up right now. You want the odds on both?
I want to know, have people gotten wise?
Well, I can give you both the. Now, where the heck did it go? There they are. All-Star Game specials. That's they recategorized here. So now I got to get this thing figured out. The website's gone totally haywire. That's not good. That's not what I wanted. It was plus 450 the last time I looked. I don't know why things have flipped around here. Now they've added all the futures, and that's taken over the page. So I've lost all the All-Star prop bets. I don't know where they disappeared to.
I'm Buddy Hield. I mean, there's something to be said for him possibly, first time trying too hard, whatever happens. I mean, this is a small sample size for all these guys. He doesn't miss though. It's crazy. Like his shooting ability, I know it's sacrilege to say that, he's on that same level with Stephen Clay, but he is. Like, he just is. It's crazy. You just don't expect him to miss. And so, yeah, I think plus 450, wink, wink, nod, nod, Dan Besbris.
I found it. I found it. It took a while, but I found it. He's at plus 400 right now. He is he's second behind Steph Curry, who's at plus 200, the favorite.
I would like 50 stacks of high society on
Budrick Hield. The dunk contest, by the way, it's all fairly even. Dennis Smith Jr. is the favorite at plus 150. Miles Bridges and John Collins at plus 250, and Hamidou Diallo is at 325 in that one. Jonas Nader, by the way, is a big Diallo fan. He thinks he's the dark horse there as the underdog.
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know any of these.
Bridges sounds interesting because he can fly. Dennis Smith, he's probably going to win. I'd probably take the chalk and go Dennis Smith there.
And here's my last one for you. Next, Lakers head coach has a prop out right now. The names they need a field, which is what I complained about on the real Big Three. But the names are Jason Kidd, Mark Jackson, Luke Walton, obviously, Frank Vogel, Kevin McHale, Tom Thibodeau, and Phil Jackson. Yeah. Also LeVar Ball, by the way, at a plus 50,000 on this one.
Can I get plus 50 stacks of high society on LeVar Ball?
On LeVar Ball, yeah, that would pay well.
Can you imagine? Oh, I don't even want to go down that road if you bet that and it hit.
Adam Silver would not allow it.
The answer to that question
is the field, I think. I think it's somebody.
Yeah, it would be the field. But you know who I would put money on is Mark Jackson.
Yeah, he's in there, plus 210.
He has this, like, first of all, Draymond's mom loves him. And I don't know why that's important, but it's like all the players, like they love Mark Jackson. Like it's so funny the way NBA players see the game of basketball. Like there's a lot of very ethereal. They just, live and breathe the game and they just look at every aspect of it. So this isn't all of them, but a lot of them still kind of go back to those 1980s, 1990s tropes that, used to be the way that the league was. And Mark Jackson is that guy.
Yeah.
It's not about strategy. It's not about, doing things the right way. It's about how much you want it, and how much that stuff.
Yeah, all right. I don't really want to think about Mark Jackson coaching my Lakers. We're going to officially end today's podcast with a famous line made popular by the great Mark Jackson. Follow Aaron Bruski on Twitter at Aaron Bruski. I am at Dan Besbris. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And as you celebrate your Valentine's Day and All-Star Weekend, just remember that if you put your hand down, there will also be a man down. And heaven help me if that dude is coach. If that dude is coaching the Lakers next year. We're cooked, man. We're done. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Hey, Dan, you're the man now, dog.
Thank you, Sean. Later, everybody.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.